Today we have 4 stories that are going to have you yelling at your screen. First up, a bride who somehow forgot to mention to her own parents that the event they were skipping was her wedding, and then the whole internet found out. After that, a mom who handed her bully daughter the single most savage comeback you've ever heard, and a camp counselor who did not see it coming. Then, a stepdad watches his wife tell his grieving little boy to literally step out of the family photo. And finally, a woman who married a man with a secret. 2 whole secret kids he hid for an entire year. Buckle up because these get messy fast. First up, a 27-year-old woman who spent her entire life playing second fiddle to her golden child brother finally decided to stop begging her parents to show up and let her wedding do the talking. Buckle up, guys, this will be kind of long. So I, 27 female, have a younger brother, Mike, 21 male. He is the definition of a man-child and a mama's boy, always complaining, always expecting others to bow to him. Just overall an asshole. Ever since he was born, my parents fussed over him for everything. He's not special needs, or had a traumatic birth, or anything of the sort. He was just born, and my parents completely discarded me. My mom, 50 female, especially. She went from a loving mother to one of those boy moms that people make fun of on the internet. My father, 50 male, still showed me love and support, but he's always been too much of a coward to stand up to my mother and let me win at least once. The only one who stood for me was my grandpa, 76 male, who always called my parents out on their bullcrap and never liked my brother. I remind him of his late wife, my grandma, and we have a very special bond, but he lives on the other side of the country, and I could never see him often. Mike knows our mom prefers him and loves to shove it in my face. Because of this and his behavior, we've always been at odds. He's spoiled, a brat, and an awful human. I can't remember how many times I ended up in trouble for things I did better than him or for things he framed me with. His only talent are his football skills. He won a scholarship to a nice college out of state. My parents didn't spend a dime on my education because apparently my fund had been used to cover expenses after a fire, just for me to discover years later that said money were given to Mike to buy a car and a house. It's at public university that I met Lucas. He was the first person I was really drawn to there. Of course, I met new people who are now my dearest friends, and thanks to them and Lucas, who was my best friend for years before we got together, I managed to move out of my parents' house. Now both Lucas and I are well known in our fields and have very good salaries. Now to the main issue. Lucas proposed to me a year ago. We're very private people, so we didn't post it on social media or anything, and when I told my parents, they dismissed it with a "that's nice." I'm starting to think they downright didn't listen to me at all. We decided that we want a nice but simple ceremony and reception with our friends and relatives. Lucas convinced me to invite my parents and brother, but they never responded to the invite. And whenever I went to visit and began to talk about my wedding, without mentioning it was a wedding, my mom would always speak over me and about my brother's accomplishments and wild adventures. At one point I got fed up with it and interrupted my mom to tell her that there was an event I was planning to organize, whose date was unmovable. She told me that they couldn't attend because my brother was playing the last game of the season that very same day and wanted them to be there. Of course, this favoritism didn't surprise me. They missed my ballet shows and both my high school and university graduation for things about him. At this point, I wanted to be petty. I told both my parents that it wasn't a problem to miss this event, purposely omitted the fact that this event was my wedding, and didn't insist further. Flash forward to a few weeks ago, I got married. It was perfect. My family, Lucas' family, and our friends were all there, and we had a blast. My grandpa was happy to give me away, and it was just perfect. My relatives asked me multiple times why my parents weren't there with us. I was honest and simply said they had my brother's game to attend and couldn't come. They gave me a few looks, and my grandpa was visibly angry for a while, but otherwise nothing strange happened. After the reception, Lucas and I left for our honeymoon and were phone-free for the whole duration of the trip. But once we got back, we discovered that a crap storm was welcoming us home. I turned my phone on and was unable to even unlock it before a storm of notifications popped up. Most of them were from my mother and brother. Mike called me all sorts of nasty names and insulted me because, apparently, one of my paternal aunts posted the photos of the wedding on Facebook and captioned it with a very obvious dig at my parents, especially my mom, for missing the wedding. The post apparently went viral in my parents' community, and they've been publicly shamed for their mistreatment of me. It also turns out that my grandpa personally visited my parents to go on a tirade to shame my father, his son, to the point of tears. And this seemed to be my father's breaking point, because he was so distraught for missing his only daughter's wedding and for his father's disapproval, that he finally rebelled against my mom and is threatening divorce unless she makes it up to me. I think that's the reason why my mom has been spamming my phone with messages, at first insulting and threatening, and then downright pitiful, full of begging and pity parties. Now I'm at home with my husband, deciding how to approach the situation. Most of my relatives, even those I didn't invite to the wedding, reached out to apologize for what I went through and to claim they had no idea this was happening at home. Can't blame any of my relatives. They all live with my grandpa on the other side of the country or in another state. But my mom's sisters and friends are belittling me for not telling my mom about the wedding because now she's inconsolable at the thought of having missed my wedding. Personally, I think she just claims that to save face, but I'm not sure. The latest messages from my father and mother seem extremely saddened and hurt for missing my wedding. Now my family is divided on three fronts. The majority, who is sticking by my side, my maternal aunts shaming me for hurting my mom's feelings, and my maternal grandparents who are adamant that I forgive my mom in light of her atonement. My best friends are telling me not to listen to them. So, Reddit, am I the asshole? Edit, thank you so much for the feedback and love. It's overwhelming. I'm going to address the popular questions here. 1. I didn't inform my parents about my wedding. I sent traditional on-paper invites to all my guests and was notified that all invites had reached their addressees. I did not receive any answer from my parents and Mike, a few very distant relatives, and some people on Lucas' side. I did reach out to all of them through message to double-check, and those who hadn't replied told me they couldn't come. I asked my parents and brother via text, but they didn't respond. I was left on read. Knowing them and given all the things I had to plan, I didn't bother insisting. 2. I didn't repeat the date of my wedding because I had already been told there was my brother's game. Plus, every time I insisted on highlighting my celebrations to get an answer, I was always told that it wasn't that important and to not be pissy and a bother, because some things were simply more important than me. At this point, I think it's fair for me to not insist anymore. It's not worth the effort. 3. I didn't keep my wedding a secret. I avoided telling my parents that it was my wedding to see if they would be interested in the slightest, but surprise, surprise, they weren't. Despite this, I did openly talk about my wedding with my aunts and uncles. My mother was in the room with us a few times when I discussed venues or dress shops with my aunt, the FB post one, but sometimes Mom was on the phone, and other times she was just chatting with other people. She never paid attention. When I talked about it during reunions, she smiled and said, "That's great, dear," and then would change the subject. Radio silence on Dad and Mike. For I kept in contact with them because, well, all the times I tried to go NC in the past years, I've been harassed. I tried after my HS, bachelor's and master's graduations, to which they never bothered to show up for reasons involving my brother. Every time I was shamed for daring to turn my back on family by my parents, my brother, my maternal aunts, and my maternal grandparents. I think the turning point here is that all those times, Lucas wasn't by my side. We started dating a little after my last attempt at going NC, and how that I have him here, I feel more confident in my stance. But before that, I want this confident. As I already stated, all my paternal side lives on the other side of the country and wasn't aware of how they treated me. I did try to expose my parents once at 14. My aunts, uncles, and grandpa reprimanded them. They faked being sorry, and then once home I got the beating and gaslighting of my life for lying. After that, Elle kept in contact regularly with my paternal side, but omitting my parents' abuse out of fear, which TBH still haunts me to this day. Only Grandpa knew, but he was always threatened to be alienated from me if he tried anything. 5. My parents and I are not from the same city. I live in a city an hour drive from my parents' small town, and they don't know my new address because once my brother tried to break in my apartment to steal some cash, and my mother backed him up, claiming that siblings share their goods. Now I moved, and I'll be sure not to tell them where I live. 6. My parents didn't buy my brother a car and a house before he even started high school. They bought him a car for his 16th birthday and a house near his college when he began freshman year. They didn't spend the money of my fund right away. They just lied to me to use it later for my brother, keeping a store for later in the meantime. Edit 2. Update is posted. Let's see what the comments have to say. This person commented, "Though we're invited, they gave a reason they weren't attending. You accepted their non-participation." Another commenter said, "Right. They were sent an invitation. When I get invitations, they are hung on the refrigerator as a reminder, and I have the decency to respond. The parents deserve everything they get. Opie needs to tell the sisters the truth." The comments are firmly in her corner on this one. They were invited, they gave a reason, and they chose the football game over their own daughter's wedding. But what do you think? So what do you guys think? Was this person the asshole? Drop your verdict in the comments below. Next, a mom whose 10-year-old daughter is fighting leukemia and a pack of vicious camp bullies. So she armed her little girl with one absolutely brutal piece of ammunition. Relevant background. My 43 female daughter Becky, 10, has struggled with leukemia since she was 5 years old, finally nearing remission, we hope. As a side effect of the chemo, she lost her hair. She's a bit self-conscious and found a wig to be very uncomfortable, but everyone at her school is quite supportive. She usually wears a baseball hat or beanie. She's never run into any bullying because of this until now. My daughter wanted to go to a YMCA day camp this summer, and her doctor cleared her. Of course, I signed her up. Unfortunately, there's a clique of girls there that have been straight up vile. My daughter came home crying the first day because the queen of this clique, we'll call her Jenny, gave her the nickname Lex, as in Lex Luthor. It's comic book week, and wouldn't stop when my daughter asked her to. I went to the counselor the next morning and pretty much asked WTF. He said that he talked with Jenny and the clique about it, and they will stop. They didn't. It just got worse. They started a game of steal Jenny's hat and keep it away from her. Counselor was some feckless teenage dude that did freak, all to stop this. My daughter wanted to try and stay in the camp because she was making friends there who actually stood up for her. I decided to arm her with a bit of secret adult information. Jenny is the daughter of a couple going through a nasty public divorce. I told my daughter that next time Jenny harasses her, she should tell Jenny that she's the reason for her parents' divorce and that they both want to get rid of her. Probably not true, but certainly a devastating insult to a tween. This worked quite well. Becky hit Jenny with divorce slam yesterday, and it was super effective. Becky was beaming when I picked her up. Jenny was inconsolable, and the counselor looked like he had just come back from Nam. He asked for a sit down with us and told me I shouldn't encourage my daughter to insult other campers. He said that Jenny was just stressed from the divorce and was misplacing her anger on Becky. I said that my daughter is not going to be a punching bag, and I will continue to teach and encourage her to hit back. Am I the asshole? Let's see what the comments have to say. This person commented, Jenny is just stressed from the divorce, and Becky isn't. Like, stressed from cancer? Another commenter said, throwing back an insult is not bullying. It's self-defense. Just want to be clear that there was only one case of bullying and one case of self-defense. Yeah, the comments are cheering this mom on. When one kid's got cancer and the camp won't lift a finger, they say a little payback is more than fair. But tell me if you'd have done the same. If you're enjoying these stories so far, remember to leave a like and subscribe for more. Then, a stepdad who spent 8 years treating his wife's 4 kids as his own watches her tell his motherless 10-year-old son to get out of the family picture. I'm really struggling here and starting to feel like I'm losing my mind. I think I'm being gaslit. So what better place to get some clarity than Reddit? Here's the situation. I've been married to my wife for 8 years, and on the whole, we have a good relationship. She has 4 kids, 2 daughters, 2 sons, ages 11 to 16, from a previous relationship, and I have 1 son, who's 10. Since day one, I've treated her kids as my own and done my best to support the family. Financially, it's a big load, but I'm happy to do it. We live together in a 5-bedroom house, where each of her daughters has their own room. Her oldest son has his own, and her youngest son shares a room with my son. The main issue, and what's tearing me apart, is how she treats my son. She barely acknowledges him, rarely asks how he's doing, and generally acts like he's invisible. Tonight, it hit a breaking point. We were celebrating her daughter's 11th birthday, and everyone was gathered to sing and take pictures. I told my son to get in with the group for a picture, which seemed fine. But then, right after the group photo, my wife looked at my son and told him, "Get out of the picture, move to the side, I want one with just my kids." I felt like my heart shattered in that moment. I completely lost it. I told her that we're supposed to be a blended family, and that my son deserves to be treated like one of her own. I feel like she's drawing lines between her kids and my son, and it just doesn't sit right with me. For context, my son's biological mom passed away 2 years ago, supposedly from COVID complications, though she had a history of drug problems that may have worsened things. My son only has my wife now as a mother figure. I'm terrified that this rejection from her is going to hurt him deeply and cause psychological damage. Am I asking too much for her to treat him like part of the family? I don't want to be overreacting, but the way she flat out ignores him is painful to witness. Am I the asshole for expecting her to step up and include him? Let's see what the comments have to say. This person commented, "I would hate to know how she treats him when you are not around." Another commenter said, "It's been 8 years. How long is the poor kid supposed to live with this? He's probably so used to it he thinks it's normal to be ostracized in his own home. Hope he needs to be a better father." The comments here are pretty split. Most of them aren't mad that he lost it. They're mad it took 8 years for him to say something, and they're begging him to actually protect his boy. So what's your verdict? If you want to hear stories from different subreddits, let me know down in the comments. And finally, a child-free woman discovers her husband of 1 year has been hiding 2 kids, and now he wants her to raise them so he can keep his fun money. I, 27 female, am vehemently child-free. I am sterilized and have no intention of having or caring for any child. I married my husband, 33 male, last year and did not know he had any children until 5 days ago. I travel for work for myself, and have amazing pay for very few active working hours. I'm a honeymoon planner, owning my own business. We have a joint account for bills and our own separate account for savings and fun money. My husband sat me down 5 days ago and told me he hadn't been completely honest with me, and revealed he has 2 children, 10 male and 7 female. He pays regular child support. However, it dips into his fun money, and he wants to be able to have fun like I am. So he said he would fight for 50-50 custody. I was furious he had lied to me and was even more angry when he told me he wanted 50-50. He works 12 to 16-hour shifts as a nurse, and that would mean I would have to take care of the children when I'm not working or working from home. I told him if he fights for custody, I will leave him. We have a prenup, so a divorce will be rather simple. I get 100% of my business, all of my savings and fun money, and the house as I inherited it from my grandmother. He called me an asshole and told me I should step up so that he can have more money in his savings and for fun, and because the kids won't be much hassle due to their ages. So, am I the asshole for telling him I will divorce him if he goes through with filing for custody? Edit/update. Thank you all so much for helping me with this situation. I knew his lies were enough of a reason to divorce my, and I'm proud to announce, soon-to-be EX. I just didn't know if divorcing him with kids in the mix would make me an asshole, especially because he works so much. He has since vacated my house. I have spoken to my lawyer and am filing for an annulment. I can because he married me in an act of fraud. The AMA protects me as it was a fraudulent marriage. Thank you all once again. Let's see what the comments have to say. This person commented, "Wait till he realizes having them will be more than child support, LMAO." Another commenter said, "And most freaked out part is that he wants custody to avoid child support, not because he actually cares about his own children." The comments are absolutely not having it with the husband, hiding 2 whole kids just to dodge child support. They say she's well within her rights to walk. But what do you think? So what do you guys think? Was this person the asshole? Drop your verdict in the comments below. That's all for today, and honestly, I can't decide which one made me angrier. Drop your verdicts down in the comments. Were these people the asshole or totally justified? I read every single one, and the spiciest takes might just make it into the next video. I got a whole pile of even crazier stories lined up, so I'll catch you in the next one.